Let me see whether this one's familiar to you. Okay. Get down on your knees, hands above your head.
Yeah.
Am I doing what? Surrender.
Yeah.
Now let's take it down a notch. Submission.
Yeah.
Surrender.
Mm-hmm.
What would you class that as? Surrender.
Yeah.
You see, I often wonder what I believed across my life. Like, we would go to these churches and different stuff like that. Different things like this, and
Mm-hmm.
you're free to believe whatever you want to believe, and that's cool. That's cool. But am I? You see, that's another question I got. Am I allowed to believe what I want to believe? I like the fact that this double U
Mm-hmm.
is actually a triple U. It's also a 3.
Mm-hmm.
How many molecules inside an atom? 3. Well, mum, dad, child itself. New person. Combining makes new. And then again, and then again, and then again, and then again. The fact that twins, the egg can split in half and a splice can form shows you that. When you divide an atom truly, can you actually halve an atom? Or are you just making more splices of a splice of a splice the same way you can pop these atoms? But when you are actually physically able to do it on a piece of paper and then open these out, something emerges. Something comes. Pareidolia. There's been no history of humans and life forms and different things like that before until the invention of religions. Different tribes here, there and everywhere. With different things they were told. And the psychology is the most powerful psyche, isn't it? If, and I use this word lightly, and let's use Gaia as another one, yes? That if this was a video for the Gaia Foundation or whatever it is they call themselves on the Gaia channel, that if religions were placed deliberately by beings that were much more powerful but destructive, they would experiment with humans and give you different divisions because they're not about uniting. On your own planet, this happens with animals. Speciesism. Animals go into cages. You experiment drugs on animals, monkeys, mice, before you put those into humans. The very essence of what is done is being done. The Mayan calendar, 2024, not 2012, 2024. They all depict that they're going to come back. You stay on the planet because you're easier as an experiment to keep penned in, to keep on the planet. Why would it be easy to keep you on the planet? Well, it's easier to get you there. How would you do it? Know the human psyche. Know the human body so intimately well. Know the psychology and therefore expand ahead. Make the numbers much more smaller. You first go around in tribes and there's no real history of humans. Then all of a sudden this thing called religion appears. Then you've got great big pyramids. You've got massive Mayan temples, Incas, different things like that. This is the only reason you know humanity existed back then. Anything past that, beyond that, well, there's not much. Why not? Because the planet recycles itself. Goes into the core and then spits it out of volcano. The history is being deleted as well as kept and stored. 4.5 billion years is the best guess of the Earth's living stature. And just before the moon crashed into the Earth, there is records of life forms on the planet even back then. How do you know that? How do you know that when everything is being recycled? Well, by a strange way of understanding different things, there should be some records on the moon then, where it hit. Bits break off and fly around the outer bits, become little moons. These get lost over time. Dinosaur bones, well, they're big. If you had a species out there that were unified together, like you have on your planet, where some say, this is wrong, we don't agree with this, experimenting on people, experimenting on animals, experimenting on this, or doing this, this and this. We have psychology. Psychology works in two ways. It can be beneficial and it can also be very detrimental. Depends on who holds that charm, who knows that information. And let's say if, and big if, don't want to cause mass panic or anything else like that, because it's not, you are entitled to believe what you want. This is all just a story. This is not real. None of this is real. It is just a story. So please, let's not get all hyped up on fear or anything else for that matter. It is just a story. A well-rehearsed story.
Yeah. It is. Isn't it?
But let's say beings came back. But you were the experiment.
Yeah.
And they were going to come back. Then they wipe out most and restart the whole thing again. Who are you collecting history for? Yourself? Or has it been programmed into you, knowing the human psychology, that if we give you something to believe in, that you will kill and defy in order to keep that belief going? Stay here. Do nothing about your fate. The universal language is picture. I don't speak, let's say, I don't know, the Chinese language, I don't speak the Russian language, I don't speak any EU languages, let's say, but I show a picture of a toilet. Would I be guided to a toilet? What about I said to someone in a different language who doesn't speak my language, I don't speak their language, connotation on the word my here. I need to use the toilet. Toilet. I need a toilet. I need to go to the well, chances are you're going to piss yourself. Because they ain't going to have a clue of what you're going on about. But you show them a picture. Draw a picture. Intelligent beings from one to another, from anywhere, it doesn't matter where. Find some intelligent beings elsewhere on a planet that is like Earth with intelligent beings on it. The only way that you are going to be able to communicate with one another is through pictures. The universal language of picture is strong. It's very strong. Universal language of words? Forget it. Forget it. To experiment on another species, meaning it would have to be taking yourself away from this perspective and put yourself in the perspective. Not because you are evil, but because you want to protect yourself from something evil. This is really the way to do it, isn't it? This is why so many people are drawn towards serial killers, documentaries and different things like that. Have you seen the views on YouTube? They're getting billions. That's with a B. Say it again. Billions of views. Versus someone talking about something that's actual fact or scientific or governments. If religion was a government, it would be the most reckonable force on the planet, that you would nearly captivate the whole population to support you. Think about that for a second. How many views do the government get? Not many. But yet a religion nearly covers the whole entire planet. Not just one, but multiple different ones. Let's say we melt that all down and they're all together as one. That's a hell of a vote, right? If it came to a vote versus religion versus government, who would win? Religion. That is a big number. That is a huge number. So let's say you, the beings, leave this planet, all as one, together. No more experimenting on each other. Animals or different things like that. And you come across some beings on another planet that are not quite up to date. They're in their nomadic lifestyles of hunter-gatherers. share little bits of information with each other, but not war-stricken or tribalistic. And then you have a plan that each in your squads are going to go out to the individual ones on that planet, and you are going to teach them different religions and tell them that they're all different, using pictures, helping them build grand structures, knowing that it won't wear away in the time that you've gone. You leave them with this and then happen across another star system. It's going to take you time to get there and then back again. All done via a calculation, because you calculate. At the same time, you will take some of them with you and breed them out. You want to make them obedient because you're in this state of hierarchy, control, dominance. They can do all of the work because they're not human. You then go away knowing that it's going to take time. When you've taken their specimens, you will then understand their psychology, the way they act under influence. You will understand all of this. By the time you come back again, their numbers have increased. You have learnt a lot about them. You then go down once again, collect what they have learnt, because you've taught them in pictures, which you know you don't need to study their language. You need to know the pictures that they're drawing. Examine all of these pictures. Remember that they would be primitive compared to your. You take pictures of their pictures, wipe the slates clean, kill a lot of them off of the planet, and leave the small pockets of numbers. And then you go away again. They, small numbers, who is now more in control and who now knows more? You will breed them off so that they are primitive again. You will mix their species like dogs to make them obedient, compliant. You will put in their psychology just in case other beings that, you know, because you wouldn't want them to leave the planet. You need to keep them in the planet, so that would be heavenly frowned upon by the gods, meaning you. And you will leave them. Once again, taking more specimens, playing around with their structures of DNA, splicing it, tweaking it. Take these ones with you, but you don't let them get too big on your craft. You will torture them. Maybe you will give some groups something that they want, and you give the other ones something that they don't, just to see how they respond in your eye. They will then start building weaponry and stuff, much like the ones on the planet that you left. And then you start building counter-defense systems that would be far exceed whatever they could build. Because remember, their understanding would have got to about here, their perspective of knowing would have expanded this much.
Yeah.
And your expanding of understanding them has also grown that much. But the ones on the planet that you've now taken off and wiped their slates clean, they only know this much about themselves. You now know this much about them, based on the time that's elapsed. And then they grow this much, these grow this much. Then you take this information that they've learned and you then grow it even further. Now you know this much. Wipe them again and give them a belief that keeps them congruent to their planet, that makes them stay on it, makes them so different that they're too busy blowing each other up to look at the stars. Stars be sin. That is sin. Don't leave your planet. Don't know your future. Don't do this. Don't do any of that. None of that at all. On the contrary, on the other hand, there are beings out there that do not believe in this and will unify with other beings and try to save them from things like this. They will group you together, and that's called united. And they will share information and help one another grow. Therefore you expand. Therefore you get a closer chance of creating eternal life within this system. Collecting the knowledge helps you get to the next step. Don't worry, these types of beings fizzle out. The other type fizzle out very quickly because of their greed and hierarchy structures. They then start to learn a little bit more, do a little bit more, understand a little bit more on that planet whilst you're leaving, going off to another one, probably mixing up your specimens. whilst knowing their psychology, this much. You've now left them with this much. You've reduced their numbers on the planet, and then they have to start again. Think about it. If humanity was to go over there and eliminate large numbers of them, they have to start again. Take away their technology, remove most of their metals, and only give them a limited amount of stuff left on the planet. Each time keep taking away. When they built up their armies, whatever they've got on their new primitive planet, and they've built that up, you will then send in one and you will let it crash land with a technology that you want them to have.
Mm-hmm.
They will then take this technology and be like, oh, we just brought them down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll tip loads of water on that seed that they are now powerful.
Mm-hmm.
They will start to build up. And then you're watching knowing that your equipment is so far more advanced than that. That is primitive, this is massive. And remember, it keeps growing because the more you're learning from them that you didn't learn, it's sort of expanding in with your own collective expansion of understanding. They keep going and keep going and keep going, so do you. You're travelling off to another one, and now you've learned a little bit more and a little bit this, and you play around with that and you experiment with this. Why would you want to experiment with that question I hear you burning on your minds? Well, because you don't want to play with your own species too much, but you will play with their species. Just like you would experiment on a mouse. But a mouse is a mouse, really. You found a specimen that's much more like you. Invaluable, that. Invaluable. All of the info that you could do. If I splice this with this and genetic this and move that and change that, I wonder what would happen to my species without ever trying it on my species. Oh, insight. Oh, fuck. Yeah. No, that one's a bad idea. This one over here is a good idea. This one sort of worked, but kind of did this. Your envelope is massive. You take more of their technology. You allow them towards in the end to bring you down. Give them technology that you wanted them to have. Wink. You let them think that their strength, which is actually a weakness, and you know it, but you allow them to believe it to be a strength. So therefore, when you come down, and let's think about hierarchy for a second, the hierarchy structure. Let's take leaders that you vote in one, drop one, vote in another, drop another, vote in another, drop another, vote in another, and you think their power is about what weapons they have. Nuclear weapons, devices, guns, ships, planes, tanks, you name it. It's all about that. And then a species that comes down, that is now viewed as a god, comes down and annihilates everything just as quick as that.